Hello, ladies, and welcome to Last Line of Defense Women's Bible Studies. I want to thank you for joining us today, and we've had a little lapse here, only because things are going so crazy, but God is in control. And tonight's study, I'll be speaking on dealing with evil people, basically, and how the Bible teaches us to do that. And I want to dedicate this study to my daughter, Rebecca Acevedo, and I just want to pray for her continued success for all her endeavors. She's been working many years with the youth, training leaders, and not at a better time, because today we see what has happened to our youth and universities and whatnot. I don't even have to go there. It's just crazy times, and she has dedicated and has a life work that in which she is very effective. So again, I want to thank her, and may God continue to bless all her endeavors, and that she continue to thrive in that and to expand. I want to get right to the meat of this, because we have a little work to do here. And Exodus 32, a very familiar passage, and I want to go a little bit into the narrative and what is going on here. But again, I want to speak on that theme, dealing with evil people. Today we would call them protesters. We don't even have to go beyond this weekend, what we saw at the Capitol, what we saw with protesters and the anti-Semitism and the hatred and just everything, the Olympics, everything that people are doing, and they're very evil people, and they don't hold no qualms. They will just tell you who they are. When they jump up onto monuments and begin to paint, Hamas is coming and everything, they missed it right there, because Hamas is already here, possibly through all of our open borders. So we're living in a time where the likes of which I have never seen, and many people are just like astounded, like what next? So we want to look at what was going on here, because Moses, in verse 32, chapter 32 of Exodus, verse 19, it says, "And it came to pass, when Moses, drew closer to the camp and saw the calf and the dances, that Moses' anger was kindled, and he flung the tablets from his hands, shattering them at the foot of the mountain." We're seeing him come down after 40 days. God had just spoken to the people on Mount Sinai 40 days earlier. So this is just, several weeks coming down, and that's what he came down to. God had to speak to him and tell him, go down, because your people are, really messed up. And so he told him that because Moses had made a decision and given, other people, the Egyptians, to come out with them. And the Bible calls them the rabble. They were rebellious, and they were, they did a lot of damage, but they also got dealt with. And Moses, knew exactly how to deal with things. Sometimes we're looking at things and we're saying, oh my God, I can't believe it's happening. When we saw all the, people, all the things that they were doing, burning up flags and everything, and it makes you want to think, boy, if they were in, our neighborhood or where we used to live, that wouldn't be tolerated. But things have gotten a bit out of control. But the good news, ladies, is that we know that nothing is out of control, that God is doing something, and he's given us enough examples in the Bible to know how to deal with these things. So we see how this whole chapter 32, I'm going to let you look at it, chapter 32, that gives the whole narrative of the Israelites' worship of the golden calf. When Moses comes down the mountain and Joshua is there, Joshua's always at the foot of the canyon, anywhere in the tent, and he was always right by him. And it's good to have people that will stay by you. And so Joshua says, well, sounds like they hear the noise. It says he drew closer to the camp and he saw the calf. We're seeing things right now, and the media will talk, oh no, that's not what you're seeing, that's not what you're hearing, no, that's not what it is, no, I think you're crazy, it's not like that. And we are getting lied to all the time. And so even Joshua, when he heard that, he said they're celebrating. It sounds like shouts of victory, and joy. And Moses said, no, that is not a sound of victory. That is not a sound of anything but pure havoc and mayhem. And it's true. They had already built the calf. They were having a big party, and involved with everything involved, with no holds barred. They were, involved in violent, malicious, murderous chaos and disorder. And that's what Moses came down to. After just being a little over a month, 40 days up, getting God's word for them and for their future. They have just had a tremendous victory. And so we want to look at how Moses dealt with this mob. I was fortunate to be married to a man that knew a lot about mob control. He knew how to deal with people. He knew, he didn't need too much discernment. He knew who was who. And it's interesting because 2 Samuel 22:27, there's a verse there. And Samuel is speaking. He says, with a pure one, you show yourself pure. But with a perverse one, you deal crookedly. You have to deal, harshly. It's not a crooked, like an evil crooked. It's just, you got to know people. You have to be a good judge of character, especially in these times right now. So how did Moses deal with the mob? First, we see that he prayed. When he came down, God speaks to him. He says, Moses, move out of the way. And, I'm going to be paraphrasing in the interest of time. But he says, get out of the way, because these people, they're stiff-necked people, and I'm about to annihilate all of them. They're all going to be toast. And Moses, interceded. He pled. He pleaded with God in the interest of saving God's honor, which you didn't have to do. But he said, what are the people going to say? You took them out, and then you killed them, and you couldn't, And we see the narrative. We know how that goes. But Moses stopped the decree of judgment on these people, And when God decrees something, it's going to happen, The only time it's not going to happen when it's a decree and an oath. God's oath is laid on it. Forget about it. So he interceded for them. He prayed for them. He knew that our forefathers had merits. He brings out, the forefathers and what God had promised to Abraham and to Isaac and to Jacob. And he knew also when to stop praying. God had to give him a lot of lessons. He was teaching him for a huge, humongous job. And we're here because he was obedient to that call. So he understood that not everybody wants the word. God had given them the word. And not everyone wants that. So in your praying, know when to stop. Know when to stop, and stop, spinning your wheels on people. Have you ever done that, and you tell people, well, the Bible says you can do this. The Bible says you can have victory through this. The Bible says, and there's everything for every question in your life. There's an answer standing right next to it, and it's in the Bible. It's in the book. So when you spin your wheels and you take a lot of abuse, you take this, and you take people's craziness and everything else, and you keep saying, well, I'll just give them the word and the word and the word. Well, some people don't want the word. And we've got people, and we're not, this is not a study of, politics and what have you. You choose who you want, but know what you're going to choose. And so he was angry. And we have examples in the Bible. He heard and he saw the evil. And that's when he shattered the tablets. And guess what? Oh, you shouldn't get angry. He threw the book, and the book's holy, and the tablets were so holy. There's a time God congratulated him. He said, you did the right thing. Because when you have that book and you know what it says, and you still continue, with evil and, disobedience and disrespect for life and values and what is right, he did the right thing. So, evil, when we see evil in our face, it should provoke us to action. He did something. He said, no, this is not good. And so, there's another example like Elijah. When the wicked son, it was a few kings, they needed victory, and they went to Elijah to get, direction and a prophecy from them. And Elijah knew that the guy that wanted it, this was the son of the wicked Ahab and Jezebel. And when he looked at it, he says, well, tell us how to get victory, and we have a couple of other good kings, and people know when to align themselves when it's to their advantage. And that's what this king was doing, Ahab's son. And Elijah was so angry. He told him, why you come to ask me? Ask your wicked mother and father. Go ask them. Why are you asking me for something? And he was so angry, but God did want to use him to give them the formula how they were going to get victory. So he had to bring in the musicians, and they had to calm Elijah down, but when you see wickedness like that, it should provoke you to anger. What nerve, how dare they, what chutzpah, it gets tricky. But then, you do what God tells you to do. And sometimes we're doing things and things that we don't want to do because we're saying, no, this guy's burning. This is a joke. This person's taking advantage. This person's abusing. And I keep trying to be nice and trying to help and give them some Bible and give them direction because they're coming to me to ask, just like this king came to Elijah. And there's a time when you do, and then you move away. So Moses, in dealing with evil people, this mob that had gotten up, and they were so in a frenzy to create that idol, create that golden calf, and they were going against everyone. And they had already killed, Miriam's son. She stood up. To try and stop things, and these people were so evil that they murdered him. So Moses knew what he was coming into. He knew what he was going to have to deal with and how to deal with it. First he prayed, and then he said, Then he got angry, and thirdly, he demanded that these people choose sides. So you're going to have to take, if verse 26 reads, whoever is for the Lord, let him come to me. And when you study that word, let him come to me, when you look at it in the Hebrew, the Hebrew content and what it means more than, I'm drawing a line and come on this side, and, that way we can separate and know who's who and who's who. No. That word gives a meaning like fall in, because this is going to get serious now. And so he's commanding them. He says, whoever is for the Lord, come to me. And so we got a lot of people right now that they've got some kind of identity crisis going on. They don't know where they're at, who they are, or what they are. And there's an example when Jacob sent his servants because Esau was coming with 400 men, and it was going to possibly be war, and that was Jacob's brother. And when the servants came, they had cattle, they had everything else, but Esau asked them an interesting question, and I'm paraphrasing, but look it up yourself. When they get to Esau and they come with a message from Jacob, that Jacob wants peace, Jews have always wanted peace, but there's a saying too that says, no Torah, no Bible, no peace, And so when they came up, Esau asked them an interesting question. One of the questions he asked, he said, where are you going? And whose are you? And they piped up, they said, we are the servants of Jacob and we follow his teachings. Now, sometimes we're looking at, well, we're all the leaders. We're all the spiritual leaders. We have spiritual leaders. But, you have to have enough sense to know, who they are and what they're teaching. And they said, we're following the teachings of Jacob. That's who we are. We're servants, and we have, a master, and it's Jacob, our forefather. So you've got to choose, and that's in verse 26 of this chapter. That's what Moses says. Whoever is for the Lord, let him come to me, fall in, and stop. If you're going to be something, or you're just going to be hiding, we used to call them undercover people. Undercover, undercover in the church, undercover, on their spiritual stand. And that doesn't work. It didn't work then, and it's certainly not going to be working now. Interesting, couple of a rabbi's sons, I was hearing about them. They were in Vietnam, and they called their father, the rabbi, and they said, we found an interesting sign over here. And what that sign said, it's just a plaque, and it said, those who don't move never notice their own chains. And we got a lot of people say, well, I'm okay, I'm not getting into politics. This is not about politics. This is not about this party or that party. This is about the fact that, the enemy and the forces of the enemy want to destroy. They want to take our liberties, take our freedoms, take our values, take our children. We're fighting for all of that, Take our everything. Right now I'm thinking about how they were able to go into schools and without the parental consent, change, the children's, young children's change their parts, and it's been a mess. It's just like so disturbing. But again, the sign says those who don't move never notice their own chains. Why? Because they're on a thing like, well, one of these days, I'll choose one of these days. I'll come all the way in. One of these days, I'm going to fall in. Today's your day. Today's your day. Get this message, give it to your daughters, give it to other women, write it down yourself, give your husband the notes, your sons the notes, it doesn't matter. This is Bible. And so we've got to fall in. And I remember that my husband, my late husband, would always say, when he would have his spiritual battles, or people, enemies that would come and, want to malign, or take people away from, the things of God or whatever. And that would be his prayer. He would say to evil, he would say to the Satan, you ain't getting nothing. He says, you ain't getting nothing because you ain't got nothing coming. And so it's a struggle. It's a struggle, and that's how we have to talk to the enemy. So the fourth thing that Moses did, he said, because we keep thinking, oh no, you're for this and you're for that, and the vote and everything. Let me tell you something. Let me tell you what I've learned from spiritual leaders. One awesome spiritual leader, that he says, nobody's vote counts but God's. God's already got this all figured out, and he's going to do, and move for the people that are righteous. When Moses said, those that will, whoever is for the Lord, come over here to me, fall in, get ready for a fight, and the Levites stepped forward. Not all the people moved. And by the way, when they gathered all the gold for the golden calf, the women refused to participate in that. So here are the men, and Moses is calling out to them, and he demands that they declare themselves. Who are they? And so the Levites, when he says come, the Levites came. And usually the Levites are, at the head, singing and preparing for the temple. They have two jobs, watching the gate and then singing during the offerings and all that. And so there are times when you got to fight. No, I don't want to get involved. I don't want to do this. I'm not telling anyone to put yourself in a dangerous position or anything like that. But, you got to stand up. You got to declare yourself. You have to, stick with what you know is in the book, what God has said. And so he ordered in verse 27, when you look at that it says, God said, let every man place his sword upon his thigh and pass back and forth from one gate to the other in the camp and kill the enemy. Get your sword out now. That's not my place and there's other people. No. When there's a call to choose sides, I don't have to tell anyone the familiar passage when Elijah called down, fire and, and the prophets of Jezebel and Ahab were killed. He made a demand on the people also. He says, choose today, not tomorrow, not next week. Got a lot of people, one of these days I'm going to try God. Well, you know what? Guess what? You don't try God. You try Pepsi. You try another taco stand. You try another pizza place. You don't try God. We're called to serve God. And, we're living in a time where, people are just like nothing's really happening. Everything's happening. And I was talking about what happened over there in the Capitol, the protesters, because, Netanyahu, the minister over there, the leader over there came and, he got so much flack. They put worms and maggots and stuff in the hotel where he was at. What the heck is that? And so he had to rush back on Saturday because 12 Drew children were murdered by an attack. And so today, right before I started this little study, I watched a little bit of the follow-up that, Israel struck Lebanon, and it was a targeted strike. And so nobody wants war, but how many times are we hearing we're so close? Oh, did you hear? What does that mean? We're so close to World War III and blah, blah, blah. It means that we got to get in line, that we got to get ourselves, we got to get angry about what we're seeing, the evil that is running rampant. We got to demand and that people that we're around, sometimes we're around people that have so much doggone negative energy that they're taking you down. When you're around that kind of energy, it affects you spiritually. Oh, I'll be okay. No, you're not going to be okay. You need to pull away. Excuse me. Just like Abraham did. When they started fighting and squabbling, his servants and Lot's servants, saying, Abraham stole everything and that's why he has so much, and they started squabbling. Abraham said, He talked to Lot and he says, what do you want? What land do you want? What do you want? Choose. You can choose the best land. You can choose everything. And he loved his nephew. He loved Lot. But he knew that things are not going to work. And so he gave him the choice. Lot chose, way over there. He pitched camp. He didn't go into Sodom at that time. He pitched outside the camp. But when you pitch outside the camp, in a bad area spiritually, it will be a matter of time before you're in there. And Lot was in there being a judge and being among the people and all that. And God had to do what he had to do and destroy that city. So Abraham said, whatever way you choose, if you go to the right, I'm going to the left. But if you choose to go to the left, I'm going to the right, because whatever place you choose to go, whatever person you choose to be, I'm going to do exactly the opposite. We get so hung up on, the left and the right, and, and this party and that party. It's not even about that anymore. The fight and the struggle is between good and evil. Something about the left is that they want to be like God. Okay, fine. We saw God's people. We saw what they did. They built their own God, and they worshiped their own God, the calf, and God had to come and deal with it, not in a month or a week or, later on in the desert. He told Moses, I'm going to take care of this right now. And the only reason he didn't annihilate them is because of Moses, coming before him. And he intervened, and he reminded God of his promises. Not that he needed to be reminded, but he had to deal with it right away. And so they were ordered to fight the men, and the Levites stood up, and they said, get that sword, put it on your thigh, and get to walking. Get to walking. Go from one end of the gate to the other end of the gate in the camp, and start getting rid of evil. So they did. And verse 28 says this. Verse 28 says they did what Moses said. Oh, but we just read that God said, in verse 27, it says, God said, let every man place his sword. But in 28, it says they, the people, the Levites, the ones that fought, it says they did what Moses said, and that day, 3,000 men fell. And in verse 35, when you finish going down that chapter, then it says, just to be sure, God threw plagues on them. Sometimes you're so afraid. Why are you afraid, to fight for what is good and what is right and your values? And, I used to serve God, but I don't anymore. Why? Because my husband left me. Oh, well, if you stick close to God, you're going to sometimes stop and wonder and laugh and think and say, what was it that I cared so much about that guy for? What was it that I was so, going to die because he left? What was it that, attracted? You're not even going to remember. Why? Because you're involved in what you're supposed to be doing. And they did what Moses said. The instructions that God gave to Moses, they did it, and they had a complete and total victory. Don't be afraid. You're not alone. You're never going to be alone. You're going to always have, the guidance of God when you do. I always said, if you do right because it is right, and I didn't coin that, but I caught it somewhere, and I've always said it because I always believed it. I said, if you do right because it is right, you're going to be right. People will look and say, well, poor Moses, they're ready to kill him. They killed his nephew. They killed they disrespected. You know what Moses did? Sometimes say, oh, I don't want to be harsh with people. You know what he did? He got the calf. He burned it. He got the gold, all the gold. He put it in water, and he made them drink it. Here, you want this God? You want to try this God? It's not Pepsi, but try it. So, sometimes we're so afraid. I don't want to turn anybody off. I got over that many years ago because, you can't turn people off that have never been turned on. They haven't been turned on. They haven't, thrown themselves to the service of God and to love God and to help people and to do what Micah said over there in chapter 6, the last verse, when the people were going crazy and there was another mob. You can go all through the Bible and see how things had to be dealt with. And they asked Micah the prophet, well, what does God want? Does he want us to, 1,000 sacrifices? Does he want this? Does he want us to, offer our kids and to be sacrificed? What does he want? And Micah said very clearly, he said he only wants 3 things. He wants you to pursue justice. He wants you to love loving kindness and to walk humbly before him. 3 things. Not, 613, like, not, 7 laws. He said 3 things. Do justice. this is not right what's going on. It's not right what's going on in your kids' school. It's not right what's going on with your family and your sons. And you've prayed, and Cal used to say, you know, you can pray until the tonsils fall out of the bottom of your feet. If you're not connecting with God, it's not going to do anything. And some people, you know, it's going to take God. Sometimes God will give, you know, our loved ones or, you know, our families, he'll almost like give them a license to sin. Oh, you want to do that? Go for it. Go for it. Oh, you want quail? Here's a lot of quail till it comes out of your nose and your mouth, you know. And sometimes you want to fear, but don't fear. God's got this. God's got this. And all you have to do is do yours. Identify yourself. When Moses said, those of you that whoever is for the Lord, you know, he said, come here, roll call, fall in, and you can't miss. It may look to other people, you know, oh, you sacrificed so much, you did so much, and now look where you're at, and, you know, nobody cares, and where is she disappeared, and where's everybody, and all that. Forget about all that. You know, I recently talked to a family member who got sick, and I said, take care of yourself, take care of your health. Nobody can do that except you. Take care of yourself. Eat right, you know, and get your rest. Don't be, you know, involved in other things, you know, that affect you spiritually, and you'll be fine. Because when you do get sick, especially during the COVID time, I said, take care of yourself. I'm way over here, you're way over there, and if you get sick, nobody's coming. Even if I flew in and camped out in the bed, they're not going to let me in to a hospital. And how many of us took losses like that? It's time to fall in, ladies. And if we fall in, this is what I say, and my daughters will tell you, and people that know me will tell you this, that I've always said, if mom's okay, and I say this to my kids, if I'm okay, everybody's okay. If I'm not okay, you guys are in a world of trouble. So, you know, I keep myself for God first, and then doing that, I'm okay, and my kids have a chance. My kids have a chance. So, I said we're going to unpack a few things here. When Moses came down, he started unpacking that Torah, that Bible, and after he threw it, we got the other one, and then he begins to unpack the one that God gave him. You know, he's not done with us. God's not done with us. So they fought, and then God gave them the complete victory. We saw, for the first time in 50 years, attempted assassination a few weeks ago. You know, and we saw it. We saw it. It's at 6 o'clock on Saturday, whatever it was. I saw the news after at that evening, and I was saying, my goodness, you know, it's been years and years, and now look at how bad things have gotten. But you know, we all praised the Secret Service, the job they did. They made themselves human shields. They were like hugging on him. One girl got criticized because they said she was too short. They saved their life, but they didn't do it. God did it. We know that. God had a plan, and when it's your time, you know, you say every bullet has an address. It was not to take out former President Trump, but the Secret Service, by falling on him like that instantly, by falling on him, that was not supposed to happen. No, it wasn't. Indeed not. Because when they take their training, it's that falling on to save the person that you're protecting. That's a secondary movement by Secret Service training. That's what they're trained to do if, you know, you don't get the shooter. So it was a secondary movement, but all in all, thank God that that bullet did not go into his head, God forbid. So we're looking at the fact that there's so many twists and turns. We don't know what happened. They're finding out so many things. That's the time we're living in. And we know the result. He got up and he challenged the people, he calmed them down, you know, I'm okay, you know, fight, let's keep fighting. He's what he's saying is, I'm fighting, so we all have to fight. And Moses didn't want, extra baggage. He didn't want people that were there, scratching their heads or, thinking, oh, well, I can't do nothing, I'm just whatever. I'm just another monkey on the tree or what. No. He wanted men that, would get their sword, and that wasn't their responsibility to be doing that. But when your life is threatened, the Torah, the Bible says you have to protect yourself. And so they said during all the investigations that the guy that took him out, the sniper that took out the shooter, that they said that shot was 1 in a million. That should have been what happened before somebody got killed and 2 others injured. And, we had to go through all of this, shock and seeing what is happening to our country and in the globe. So we know it wasn't the shooter, the 1 in a million shot that took out the shooter and saved lives. It was God. It was God. It's always God protecting us. That's why when I started these studies, and I'm going to conclude, of last line of defense, I challenged you ladies, because we know that it's a military term that is used, the last line of defense, and it means where the mission is to hold enemy forces and not allow them to pass. They weren't supposed to jump on him. That was never supposed to happen. That shooter was supposed to be taken out. That's the training that they have. So whatever way, everything goes according to God's plan. Why? Because he's in charge. And so Moses had, the know-how, the wherewithal, because God was instructing him. He was close to God, and he was getting his instruction. God said to Moses, have them get their sword on their thigh and walk back and forth, walk from one gate to the other gate in the camp and take out evil. When I came here in 92, I think. Oh boy. Yeah. My late husband passed away here in the Bronx, and we were doing a work. And we knew it was an evil city. New York was an evil city, and there was, a lot of opposition and a lot of struggles, and, we could have got a lot of help, but we didn't get a lot of help. So you do what you do. We're trained, and we know what to do with money and what to do without the money. We still do what we do. We could do it easier if we had the money. However, you don't have a choice. God said to Moses, tell them to do this. And they did what Moses said, and they went and cleaned house there. So we came, and I didn't know that my husband would pass away here in the Bronx. We were just getting rolling, we were having, a good degree of success in the sense that people loved what we were teaching. They loved to hear that there's a God that loves them. There's a God that hasn't forgotten them. There's a God. I was looking at the rallies over there and where Trump went into the Bronx. And I said, good, but we already cleared all that area. We already worked all that area. We already took God's message to that park. We already took God's message to that community. So his job was easy when he went in there. But you keep doing it, if nobody knows or nobody sees or nobody else, we already did that. I have all the footage. I have my kids doing plays there. I have the kids doing music. I have, teams going in. We already worked that ground. Why? Because God told us to. And I didn't know that, we were going to lose and we were going to experience the saddest and the most painful day in our lives. It affected many people, that he went on and passed away. But it hurt me and my kids, especially, more than anyone else on this planet. Oh, but we loved him too. Not like we did. Not like we did. And God gave him to us, God gave him to me. God gave us children together. And so we felt that. And sometimes people would come and say, we want to stay with you and be here around you and support you and everything else, but it's not the same. Of course it's not the same. It's not the same for you, but it's really not the same and will never be the same for me and my children. But we clung together, and we did what we could. Thank God, my kids are, they love God and they're serving God. But I remember, and it's my second closing, for many, many years, some singer or group came and they gave my husband Cal a plaque. And it was a plaque with the quote of Edmund Burke. And he kept that for years, where it was in his office, and it was just a little feathery flowers, and it looked like burlap, but it was written on there, a quote from him. And it says, the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. And when we were working in other cities, particularly in San Bernardino for 16 years, when we got hit, well, everybody gets hit, everybody gets hit. You know what? Everybody has problems. Everybody takes losses. We were taking a lot of hits. And when one couple that had just come in and we were training them, that day he was in prayer in his room, new converts. He was in prayer in his room. Somebody in the wee hours knocked on the door of their home. She answered because he was in the room praying, and it was a mistaken house. It was a gang kid that went to the wrong house. Short of it long, he shot her point blank, face in her head, in her face, and we almost lost her. But I want you to know that decades later, that couple's still in San Bernardino, and they've been there, and they opened up a little church, and they haven't stopped, telling people the message that was given to them, that God loves them and has a purpose for them. And they go through a lot of things too, as we all do. But I remember in one emotional service during that time, and he had said it before, but he said it again while he was speaking to the people. And he said this, and I close with this. He says, when I leave this planet, when it's my time and I have to go, a lot of people tell me that, oh, you're a general, when you get to heaven, you're going to have on a uniform and you're going to have so many medals and Purple Heart and, medals all across here, and you're going to, be standing there because you're going to get your reward. And he was crying when he said this. He said, when I leave here, I want to leave all bloodied up. I want to leave fighting. I want to keep fighting. I want to keep shooting at the enemy for all the things that he does to our people, to God's people. I want to leave fighting. I don't want to leave looking at his words, looking pretty. I want to go with my sleeves torn. I want to go with my leg blown off. I want to go holding on after they blow my leg. I'm holding on to a tree, and I want to continue to shoot with the other hand. That's the kind of fighting spirit that he had. That's the kind of fighting spirit that we miss. That's the kind of spirit that it's going to take. These Levites knew that some of their families were going to have to be taken out. Some of their families were not with Moses. Some of their families were, against him, and they were going to side with evil. And so I started to say that, when you side with the left, and I'm not talking politics, I'm talking about a mindset, an ideology, that the left want to be like God, but the far left want to be God. And God came down and he said, get out of the way, Moses. Not having this. And so Moses knew he was going to have to act. And not in 2 days or 2 weeks or 2 months or 2 years. He was going to have to act then. They did it. They fought that day. And God heard him, and God came in behind him. 3,000 men fell. What does the Bible say? That day. Not a week later. Not after. Let's counsel them some more. Let's not give up on them. Evil is evil. Evil is evil. And the prophet Micah one day the Bible says, it's a very short chapter. You should read it. It says he's sitting on the floor, and he was a prophet. He was he dealt with agriculture. He was not like Elijah over there with the kings and all that. He was a very humble man and simple man, very humble. And he said these words. You see them in your Bible. And he said, "Don't gloat over me, my enemy. Don't gloat. Don't come around, being happy because I'm in this condition. I'm having problems right now. I'm getting hit." He says, "Don't gloat over me, my enemies. Though I sit in darkness, light will come to me." And I close with that, because it doesn't matter where you're at. If you will make a decision and you will serve God and get away from toxic relationships, toxic, people that get your ear and influence you for the negative, this is our time, because when we wrap it all up, I don't want to go all bloody. We're talking in the spiritual sense. What Cal was saying is that I want to go out fighting. I don't want to be, I don't want to be on vacation. I don't want to be on the cruise. I don't want, and all that's beautiful and fine, and we've done that. He said, I want to be in the front line because my family is at stake, my values, my, the honor of God is here at stake. These people mock God every time, they turn around. I'm going to leave you with that. I'm going to leave you on a happy note too, because I'm so happy that I could come to you this way. I haven't traveled much, but I will be traveling, and I hope to see you. When I do come in, I'm hoping to make a trip into California. I miss my kids. I miss my grandsons. I miss my granddaughter. I miss my daughters. And I'm blessed, so I'm happy because I got 2 big sons that take care of me all the time. And and they better take care of me because I take care of them. God bless you. I love you. I'm done. My son gave me a new equipment so that I could record, because I've been recording out of a little phone that uses storage.